about what he's doing.
It might be a little easier if I just put this here since I'll have my hands full. But good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So thank you again for the invitation, Ms. Love. And I've been here once before and met a number of you, and I really enjoyed that. And I was glad to attend here also because there's so many issues, of course, going on here in the community and the district as well. And I was curious to ask with Ms. Love, with her organization too, because I believe what I'm promoting and advocating is something somewhat new, but I think hopefully it will tie in and be very viable and so forth. So I guess just before I start that, I'll pass around some of these flyers so you can look at just some of the things that I'm talking about. Thank you. There's actually two. Yep. And they do go together, and as you'll see, I did announce as a candidate here, a while ago, maybe a year ago, but you'll also see there I actually started a new political party. We have the Republican, we have the Democrat, but I started something there, as you can see, called the Free Dominion. And I'll let you know, I guess, a little bit more about it as we get started. But I guess the premise of the whole thing of what I'm advocating is basically the dignity of choice. So I'm very appreciative that we're here at Faith Chapel tonight because the premise of the ideals that I'm advocating is that we all are granted a conscience from the Creator, and because we've been dignified with that, we also have the agency to choose right and wrong. And basically, as that young man here had said, we all have to have the capacity to love. So that may be more personal, but what this translates into then is a practical side where if someone would rather fund citizens, if they would rather fund a school, I know the high school has closed, that's been a big issue. If someone would rather fund Ms. Love's program, rather than, if you will, an unjust war or something abusive, I'm saying people should have the dignity, the prerogative to put their money where they want and to exercise their conscience. So the way this works then in the practical side is I'm calling for it's something new, to my understanding anyways, I believe. But it's basically through public trusts. So what would happen then practically is you could get an annual report, and if you would rather put your money, your funds, your endowment to the roads rather than, now this ties in a little bit where, let's say there's big issues like the NSA spying on people. What I'm saying is true leadership would say, let's say a city council person would challenge the federal government and say, because again we have a conscience, because I am free to be free from prejudgment of saying people, I'll back up, instead of the prejudgment saying no one can do any good, I'd like to say let people exercise their light. The last group to be prejudged is the innocent. Let people exercise their light, let people give to what they believe has value, where there's a cause. And let's say now if the federal government says, we want the money going to the NSA spying on people, I think true leadership should say no. We have a conscience. The city council is closer to the conscience rather than the federal, and there's a place for that. So anyways, if you get a public trust, you put your money where you want, and I think what that does, going back to what Ms. Love said about, let's say, the cause of things, why is there such turmoil, homicide, these things? In my mind, if people were able to exercise their light, able to exercise the dignity, I think there'd be less resentment, I think there'd be less cynicism, I think there'd also be less desperation because the money can go to places where you would want it instead of billions spent on unjust, unprincipled causes and things like that. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Some other things to, just in terms of advocating, we often talk, in my mind, the economic picture is it's becoming more and more apparent. Things are difficult, and this is a federal thing, but I think it can be challenged, is I have here, I'll even maybe pass around if you'd like to take a look at it, but this is just something very interesting. It's often dedicated to the federal level, but I think it's worthy challenging here locally. Here, of course, are two $1 bills, and if you were to take a close look, this is the modern $2009 bill. This is in 1935, and if you look close, this says silver certificate, this says Federal Reserve. The criticism of the Federal Reserve, I used to think, the more I learned, I used to think that inflation was a part of life, but to my understanding more now, the way it apparently works is, let's say a massive war, something unjust. To pay for it, the Federal Reserve just puts zeros and ones in the ledger supply. There's no value, there's nothing behind it. So what used to be 2 cents for a loaf of bread is now $2. What used to be $10,000 for a house is now $100,000. All of that is against the constant of one's effort. So what I'm saying is that people should have the choice, if the philosophy, I call it dignitarian, instead of libertarian or Republican or Democrat, to have the prerogative, the dignity to choose. I'm saying people should have the dignity to get out in currency. And in 1935, the point is here, this goes back to silver certificates, copper. So if you want an exchange of real money again, get out of inflation, get out of fiat paper, I endorse your prerogative. I say, go ahead, exercise your goodwill, exercise your conscience. It's a gift from the divine, so what's wrong with that? So if the money went further, if there was less inflation, charity would go further, there'd be less urgency of need. I think, again, what Ms. Love was saying, to care, there'd be less pressure, and I think, again, it would affect all boats would rise, and there'd be just, I think we'd be better off, the light would shine, if you will. So that's a big part as well, and I think that's the main premise, but I can say, I'm just glad to say that I've been going around, flyers, doors front, and so forth, that I'm glad to say that most people have agreed, just saying with the dignity of choice. I think there's a beauty to that, and it hasn't really been advocated so far, so that's my main premise. So, questions or concerns? Yes, Jeff?
You're running for the 8th Council benefit?
Yes, so this is not until next year, but getting an early start, and yeah, it would be this new party then, it's called Free Dominion, as you can see, and it's basically the same sort of thing, where it would probably be, I anticipate, the voting ledger would just probably say I, independent, but hopefully I can get the name on there and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's not till next year, so hopefully getting an early start is a good thing. So,
What district?
District 8, so yeah, that basically goes from, basically on Germantown Avenue, from Chestnut Hill down to North Philly, basically. Yep. So, I'm sorry, yes?
You have such a different outlook. Have people been connecting with you?
Yeah, I'm glad to say there's a woman I met over in, she lives in Strawberry Mansion area, so let's say the politics side. She actually was moved. She wants to run for council in her district, which is District 5, I believe. And this is, let's say, a little politics, but the history of it, I did some research at the public library, and I think it would be the first time, if you will, a fourth party candidate, two fourth party candidates will actually challenge the two. And this is not saying Republican members are all bad, I'm just saying that there's room for growth, there's room for ideas. So that was encouraging, and maybe if you, I live over on Wayne Avenue, so maybe if you've even been around, seen my truck, I have a big placard on the back. And it's nice because it basically says public trust, dignity of choice, and I was actually sitting outside here just before I came in, and a young man walked up and says, "What's your bumper sticker about?" So I told him, he says, "Oh," he says, I like it. So yeah, I think rather than prejudging people that no one can do good, I say let people exercise their life. There's a place for criminal law, but let people have the dignity to choose, and I think a lot of people do. So.